moving to Thailand with my new girl, starting fresh. The words on my husband Derek's Facebook post burned into my eyes as I sat at my desk that Tuesday morning. My husband Derek's words, moving to Thailand with my new girl, starting fresh, were an agonizing sight as I sat at my desk on a Tuesday morning. My coffee grew cold beside me as comments started flooding in. Shocked faces, questions, and sympathy reactions from our mutual friends. Beside me, my coffee grew cold while our shared friends reacted with shocked questions and sympathy in the comment section. With trembling fingers, I typed a single word reply. Okay, my fingers trembled as I typed a single, simple response. Okay, my name is Elena Mitchell and I'm a 52-year-old software engineer living in Chicago. I'm Elena Mitchell, a 52-year-old software engineer based in Chicago. After 23 years of marriage, my husband decided to announce the end of our relationship through social media, thinking I was too naive to fight back. Following 23 years of marriage, my husband announced our separation on social media under the misguided assumption that I was too innocent to defend myself. What he didn't know was that I had been watching, waiting, and preparing for months. He was unaware that I had been observing, anticipating, and getting ready for this moment for several months. The signs had started appearing last spring. I began noticing the warning signs last spring. Derek began working late, guarding his phone like it contained state secrets and making mysterious weekend business trips. Derek started staying at work late, became secretive with his phone, and took unexplained business trips on weekends. But the real red flag was when he started asking questions about our retirement accounts and investment portfolio. The most significant warning, however, was when he suddenly showed an interest in our retirement accounts and investment portfolio as a senior manager at a construction company. Derek had always left the financial planning to me. As a construction company senior manager, Derek had always entrusted me with our financial planning. His sudden interest sent warning bells ringing through my mind. His unexpected curiosity immediately raised my suspicions. You're being paranoid, my sister Kate told me when I first shared my suspicions. Derek wouldn't throw away 23 years of marriage. When I first voiced my concerns, my sister Kate dismissed them, saying, "You're just being paranoid. Derek wouldn't jeopardize a 23-year marriage." But I knew better. But I knew the truth. The same instincts that made me successful in complex computer systems were telling me something was very wrong in my marriage. The same instincts that allowed me to solve complicated software issues were now alerting me to a serious problem in my marriage. I started documenting everything. Every late night, every suspicious credit card charge, every password to our joint accounts. I began keeping a record of everything. His late nights, unusual, credit card charges, and passwords for our shared accounts. I created a folder on my work computer labeled System Backup 2023 Innocent Enough if Derek ever saw it, but inside was a detailed record of his increasingly suspicious behavior on my work computer. I created a folder named System Backup 2023, a harmless title that concealed a comprehensive record of his suspicious actions. That the Facebook post was his final act of arrogance. His Facebook post was the ultimate display of his arrogance. Looking at his smiling profile picture, the one I'd taken during our anniversary dinner just 6 months ago. I felt a strange sense of calm, gazing at his smiling profile photo, which I had taken at our anniversary dinner only 6 months prior. I felt an unusual sense of peace. While he thought he was making a grand exit, he had no idea that I'd spent the last 3 months consulting with Diana, the best divorce attorney in Chicago. He believed he was making a dramatic departure, but he was completely oblivious to the fact that I had spent the last 3 months working with Diana, Chicago's top divorced attorney. I'd already moved most of our joint assets into accounts under my control, documented his pattern of financial manipulation, and secured copies of all our important papers. I had already transferred the majority of our shared assets into my personal accounts, documented his financial deceptions, and made copies of all our critical documents. Derek always joked that I was just a computer nerd who didn't understand how the real world worked. Derek used to tease that I was just a computer nerd who didn't know how the world really operated. He assumed I would fall apart without him, like some helpless damsel in distress. He thought I would fall apart without him, like a helpless woman needing to be rescued. But 25 years of coding had taught me one vital lesson. The best programs anticipate all possible failure scenarios, and I had planned for this one meticulously. However, 25 years of programming had taught me a crucial lesson. The best systems account for all possible failures, and I had carefully prepared for this one. Living with Derek had become a master class in overlooking red flags. My life with Derek had taught me to ignore red flags. We met at Northwestern University when I was completing my master's in computer science, and he was finishing his business degree. We met at Northwestern University while I was getting my master's in computer science, and he was finishing his business degree. Back then, I was impressed by his confidence and ambition. He seemed different from the other guys in my program. At that time, his confidence and ambition impressed me. He stood out from the other men in my program. He could talk about things beyond coding and actually made me laugh. Unlike them, he could discuss topics other than coding and actually made me laugh. The early years of our marriage were good, or at least I thought they were. The beginning of our marriage was good, or at least that's what I thought. We bought our first home in Lincoln Park, a beautiful Victorian that needed work but had potential. We purchased our first house in Lincoln Park, a beautiful but fixer-upper Victorian with great potential. I took a job at a growing tech company while Derek climbed the corporate ladder at his construction firm. I started working at an expanding tech company while Derek advanced in his career at the construction firm. We talked about having children, but my first pregnancy ended in miscarriage, and somehow we never tried again. We had discussed having children, but after my first pregnancy ended in a miscarriage, we never attempted to have another child. Instead, we poured ourselves into our careers. We both devoted ourselves to our careers. Looking back, I should have noticed how Derek's attitude toward me shifted as my career took off. In hindsight, I should have paid attention to how Derek's demeanor changed toward me as my career progressed. When I was promoted to lead engineer, he dismissed it as just playing with computers. When I was promoted to lead engineer, he brushed it off as just playing with computers. When my salary surpassed his, he started making snide comments about how I was lucky to be a woman in tech. When my income exceeded his, he began making sarcastic remarks about my luck as a woman in the tech industry. But I kept making excuses for him, thinking that's what a good wife did. I kept justifying his behavior, believing it was what a good wife was supposed to do. My wake-up call came during a dinner party last March. I had a moment of clarity. During a dinner party last March, Derek was bragging about a new project his company had landed, and someone asked about the software they were using to manage it. During a dinner party, Derek was boasting about a new project his company had won, and someone inquired about the project management software they were using. Before I could answer, Derek cut in, saying, "Oh, Elena doesn't understand these things. She just does basic programming." Before I could respond, Derek interrupted, saying, "Oh, Elena doesn't get these things. She only does simple programming." I felt my face burn as our friends shifted uncomfortably in their seat. They knew I had designed similar systems for major corporations, but Derek couldn't stand acknowledging my expertise. My face flushed with embarrassment as our friends looked uncomfortable. They knew I had designed similar systems for large corporations, but Derek hated admitting my expertise. That night, after everyone left, I started paying closer attention. That evening, after our guests had departed, I began to pay more attention. Noticed how Derek would leave the room to take phone calls, how he changed his phone's password, how he began mentioning a new project coordinator named Jessica with increasing frequency. I noticed how Derek would leave the room to take calls, change his phone's password, and mentioned a new project coordinator named Jessica more and more often. Then came the weekend conferences that he couldn't quite explain, and receipts from restaurants I'd never heard of. Then there were the weekend conferences he couldn't explain and receipts from unfamiliar restaurants. My sister Kate was the only one who knew what was really happening. My sister Kate was the only one I confided in about what was truly happening. "You need to protect yourself," she urged over coffee one morning. "Derek's not just having an affair. He's planning something. You must protect yourself," she insisted during a morning coffee. "Derek isn't just having an affair. He's scheming something." She worked in banking and had seen too many women left financially devastated by divorces they didn't see coming, working in banking. She had witnessed too many women lose everything in divorces they hadn't anticipated. I took her advice to heart. I took her advice seriously. While Derek thought I was absorbed in my computer games, I was actually documenting every suspicious transaction, every unexplained absence, every passive-aggressive comment. While Derek believed I was engrossed in computer games, I was actually recording every questionable transaction, every absence, and every passive-aggressive remark. Set up a private email account and began forwarding all important financial documents there. Created a private email account and started sending all important financial documents to it. Started squirreling away money in a separate account. Just as Kate suggested, I began secretly saving money in a separate account, as Kate had advised. It wasn't about revenge. It was about survival. This wasn't about revenge. It was about my survival. The day after Derek's Facebook announcement, I walked into our kitchen to find him smugly drinking coffee, studying my face for signs of a breakdown. The morning after, Derek's Facebook announcement. I found him in the kitchen, sipping coffee with a smug look, watching me for any sign of emotional distress. "We need to talk," he said, as if he hadn't just broadcast our marital collapse to the entire world. He said, "We need to talk," as though he hadn't just announced the end of our marriage to everyone on social media. "I've already spoken with a lawyer about dividing our assets. I've already consulted a lawyer about how we'll divide our assets." The confidence in his voice made my blood boil, but I kept my expression neutral. His confident tone infuriated me, but I maintained a calm expression. I remembered Diana's advice. Let him think he's in control. Men like Derek hang themselves with their own arrogance. I recalled Diana's advice. Allow him to believe he's in control. Men like Derek are undone by their own arrogance. "I assume Jessica is the new girl you mentioned," I asked calmly, pouring myself a cup of coffee. "I assume the new girl you mentioned is Jessica?" I asked calmly while pouring myself some coffee. His eyes widened slightly. He hadn't expected me to know her name. He looked slightly surprised. He didn't expect me to know her name. "The project coordinator from your Singapore development. How did you... He started, then caught himself. "The project coordinator from your Singapore project. How did you... He began, then stopped himself. "It doesn't matter, Elena. I'm not going to be cruel about this. You can keep the house. I just need you to transfer my share of our retirement accounts and investment portfolio. My lawyer will be sending over the paperwork." "It doesn't matter, Lena. I won't be cruel about this. You can have the house. I just need you to transfer my portion of our retirement and investment funds. My lawyer will be sending over the necessary documents." I nodded, taking a sip of my coffee. I nodded and took a sip of my coffee. "Of course, I'll have my lawyer review everything when it arrives." "Certainly. I'll have my lawyer look over everything once it arrives." The flash of uncertainty in his eyes was brief but satisfying. He clearly hadn't expected me to have already retained legal counsel. A fleeting but satisfying look of uncertainty crossed his face. He clearly hadn't anticipated that I had already hired an attorney. "Your lawyer?" he scoffed, trying to regain his footing. "Come on, Elena. Don't make this difficult. We both know you're not cut out for a legal battle. Your lawyer..." He sneered, trying to regain his composure. "Come on, Elena. Don't be difficult. You're not suited for a legal fight." He reached for his phone, probably to check his accounts, and I watched as his face shifted from confidence to confusion. He grabbed his phone, likely to check his accounts, and I watched as his confident expression turned to confusion. "That's strange," he muttered, tapping frantically at his screen. "The banking app isn't working." "That's odd," he mumbled, furiously tapping his screen. "My banking app isn't working." He tried another app, then another. The crease between his eyebrows deepened. He tried another app, and then another. The furrow in his brow deepened. "What's going on with my phone?" "What's wrong with my phone?" I set down my coffee cup. "Maybe you should check your email, the one you use for all our financial accounts." I put my coffee cup down. "Perhaps you should check your email, the one you use for all of our financial accounts." I watched as he pulled up his email on his phone, his face growing paler by the second. I watched his face go pale as he opened his email on his phone. "Oh, wait, you can't." I changed all the passwords last night. Two-factor authentication is a wonderful thing, isn't it? Oh, wait, you can't. I changed all the passwords last night. Two-factor authentication is a great feature, isn't it? You can do this. He sputtered, his arrogance finally cracking. That's my money, too. You can't do this. He stammered, his arrogant facade finally crumbling. That's my money, too. Actually, I replied, sliding a folder across the counter. You'll find copies of all the documentation in here. Your unauthorized withdrawals from our joint accounts, the money transfers to Jessica's account in Singapore, the empty investment account you created in your name. My lawyer has the originals. Actually, I responded, pushing a folder across the counter. This folder contains copies of all the evidence, your unauthorized withdrawals from our shared accounts, the money you transferred to Jessica's account in Singapore, and the empty investment account you created. My lawyer has the original documents. Derek's face went from pale to red. You've been spying on me. Derek's face turned from pale to red. You've been spying on me? No, Derek. I've been protecting myself. There's a difference. No, Derek, I've been protecting myself. There's a clear distinction. I stood up, gathering my things. I got up and collected my belongings. By the way, Thailand has an extradition treaty with the US. Just something to consider before you try accessing any of our accounts from there. By the way, Thailand and the US have an extradition treaty. Something to keep in mind before you try to access any of our accounts from there. Derek spent the next few hours frantically calling his lawyer while I packed my overnight bag. I had already arranged to stay with Kate until things settled down. While I packed my bag, having already arranged to stay with Kate, Derek spent the next few hours desperately calling his lawyer. As I folded my clothes, I could hear him in his home office, his voice getting increasingly agitated while folding my clothes. I could hear his voice growing more and more agitated in his home office. What do you mean she has documentation? Those transfers were private. He paused, listening. No, you don't understand. She's just a programmer. She couldn't have. What do you mean forensic accounting? What do you mean she has proof? Those transfers were private. He paused, listening. No, you don't get it. She's only a programmer. She couldn't have. What do you mean by forensic accounting? I allowed myself a small smile as I zipped up my suitcase. I couldn't help but smile slightly as I zipped my suitcase. Diana had warned me that men like Derek always underestimate their wives. Diana had cautioned me that men like Derek consistently underestimate their wives. The smart ones, she'd said during our first meeting, are the ones who use that underestimation to their advantage. During our first meeting, she had told me the clever ones use that underestimation to their benefit. When Derek finally emerged from his office, his face was ashen. When Derek eventually came out of his office, his face was ash. The lawyer says you filed for a divorce, citing financial abuse and adultery. His voice was quieter now, the smugness replaced by something closer to fear. He says you have proof of everything. My lawyer says you filed for divorce, accusing me of financial abuse and adultery. His voice was now softer, his smugness replaced by what sounded like fear. Says you have proof of everything. That's right, I replied, checking my phone as another email notification came in. Oh, and it looks like your company's HR department just received an anonymous tip about certain irregularities in your project expenses. Specifically, all those romantic dinners with Jessica that you charged to the Singapore development account. That's correct, I said, checking my phone as a new email came in. It seems your company's HR department just received an anonymous tip about some unusual project expenses specifically. All those romantic dinners with Jessica that you billed to the Singapore development account. You wouldn't, he whispered, but we both knew I already had. You wouldn't, he whispered, but we both knew that I had. I also took the liberty of forwarding those questionable expense reports to the board of directors. I continued. They seemed particularly interested in the weekend trips to Miami that you logged as client meetings. Funny, I don't remember Miami having anything to do with the Singapore project. I also took the liberty of sending those suspicious expense reports to the board of directors, I added. They seemed very interested in the weekend trips to Miami you listed as client meetings. It's funny because I don't recall Miami being part of the Singapore project. Derek sank into the couch, his face in his hands. Derek slumped onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. Elena, please, we can talk about this. I made a mistake. I see that now. Elena, please, we can discuss this. I made a mistake. I understand that now. A mistake. I felt 23 years of suppressed anger rising in my throat. A mistake is forgetting our anniversary. A mistake is buying the wrong brand of coffee, broadcasting your affair on Facebook, and trying to steal our retirement savings. That's not a mistake, Derek. That's a choice. A mistake. I felt 23 years of pent-up anger surge within me. A mistake is forgetting our anniversary or buying the wrong kind of coffee. Announcing your affair on Facebook and trying to steal our retirement savings is not a mistake, Derek. It was a conscious choice. My phone buzzed again. Another email from Diana. My phone buzzed with another email notification from Diana. Well, would you look at that? I said, scanning the message. The judge has granted an emergency injunction freezing all our joint assets pending the divorce proceedings. I guess those records of your transfers to Jessica's account came in handy after all. Well, look at this, I said, reading the message. The judge has issued an emergency injunction to freeze all of our joint assets until the divorce is finalized. I guess those records of your transfers to Jessica's account were useful after all. What am I supposed to do? Derek asked, his voice small. All my credit cards are linked to our joint accounts. What am I supposed to do? Derek's voice was small. All my credit cards are connected to our joint accounts. I shouldered my bag and headed for the door. I put my bag on my shoulder and walked toward the door. You know, there's a certain irony here. You always said I spent too much time playing with computers. But it turns out all that playing taught me exactly how to track digital paper trails. Every login, every transfer, every deleted email or leave traces, if you know where to look. There's a certain irony here, you know. You always claimed I spent too much time playing with computers. But it turns out all that playing taught me how to trace digital footprints. Every login, every transaction, every deleted email day, all leave a trail if you know where to find it. Over the next few days, Derek's perfectly planned escape to Thailand crumbled piece by piece. In the days that followed, Derek's meticulously planned trip to Thailand fell apart completely. His company placed him on administrative leave pending an investigation into his expense reports. His company put him on administrative leave. While they investigated his expense reports, Jessica, it turned out, had her own secrets. She was already married to someone else in Singapore. It turned out that Jessica had secrets of her own. She was already married to another person in Singapore. When the company's investigation brought that to light, she quickly disappeared from Derek's life, blocking him on every platform. Once the company's investigation uncovered that she vanished from Derek's life, blocking him on all social media platforms, I watched it all unfold from the safety of Kate's guest room, where I spent my evenings updating Diana on Derek's increasingly desperate attempts to access our accounts. From the comfort of Kate's guest room, I watched it all happen. Each evening, I would update Diana on Derek's more and more desperate attempts to get into our accounts. He tried calling our bank, but without the two-factor authentication codes now tied to my phone, he couldn't verify his identity. He attempted to call our bank, but since the two-factor authentication codes were now linked to my phone, he couldn't prove his identity. He tried sweet-talking our financial advisor, only to discover I'd already informed him of the situation and provided copies of the court order. He tried to charm our financial advisor, only to learn that I had already told him about the situation and provided him with copies of the court order. "You've got him cornered," Kate said one evening as we shared a bottle of wine. "But aren't you worried he might try something drastic?" "You have him cornered," Kate said one night as we shared a bottle of wine. "But aren't you concerned he might do something drastic?" I shook my head. That's why I made sure to save his Facebook posts and all the responses. If he tries anything, it'll only prove my case about his character to the judge. I shook my head. I saved his Facebook post and all the comments for that very reason. If he tries anything, it will only serve to prove my case about his character to the judge. The breaking point came when Derek's lawyer withdrew from the case. The final straw came when Derek's lawyer dropped him as a client. I later learned that Diana had sent him the complete file of evidence I'd gathered, every suspicious transaction, every inappropriate expense report, every message between Derek and Jessica that I'd managed to recover from our shared cloud storage. I later found out that Diana had sent the lawyer the entire file of evidence I had collected, every suspicious transaction, every inappropriate expense report, and every message between Derek and Jessica that I had recovered from our shared cloud storage. Derek started calling me constantly, switching between threats and pleas. Derek began calling me nonstop, alternating between threats and pleas. "You've ruined my life," he shouted in one voicemail. "I'll make you regret this in the next. Baby, please, I made a terrible mistake. We can work this out. You've ruined my life," he yelled in one voicemail. "I'll make you regret this in the next. Please, honey, I made a terrible mistake. We can fix this." I didn't respond to any of his messages. I didn't reply to any of his messages. Instead, I forwarded each threatening voicemail to Diana, who added them to our growing file of evidence. Instead, I sent each threatening voicemail to Diana, who added them to our expanding collection of evidence. Every threat he made only strengthened my position. Each threat he made only made my case stronger. The final blow came when his company concluded their investigation. The last blow came when his company finished its investigation. Not only had Derek been misusing company funds to finance his affair with Jessica, but he'd also been skimming money from project budgets for years. It was revealed that Derek had not only used company funds to pay for his affair with Jessica, but had also been stealing from project budgets for years. They fired him immediately and filed criminal charges for embezzlement. He was immediately fired. And the company filed criminal charges against him for embezzlement. I was in Diana's office when we got the news. I was in Diana's office when the news came. Still think you want to move to Thailand? She asked dryly as she read the email from the company's lawyers. Because now would probably be a good time. Do you still want to move to Thailand? She asked Riley as she read the email from the company's lawyers. Because now would probably be a good time. I couldn't help but laugh. All those years of Derek treating me like I was naive, like I couldn't possibly understand the real world of business and money. Yet here he was, undone by the very skills he'd dismissed my attention to detail. My understanding of digital forensics, my ability to follow complex paper trails through computer systems. All those years, Derek had treated me as if I were naive and incapable of understanding the business world and finances. He was now undone by the very skills he had belittled my eye for detail, my knowledge of digital forensics, and my ability to track complex financial records through computer systems. You know what the best part is? I told Diana he still has no idea how long I knew, how long I was gathering evidence while he thought I was just his clueless tech wife. You know what the best part is? I told Diana he still has no idea how long I knew, how long I was collecting evidence while he thought I was just his clueless tech wife. 3 weeks after Derek's Facebook announcement, I returned to our house to collect more of my things. 3 weeks after Derek's Facebook announcement, I went back to our house to get more of my belongings. I found him sitting on the front steps, unshaven and wearing wrinkled clothes. I saw him sitting on the front steps, unshaven and in wrinkled clothes. The sight was jarring. This disheveled man was nothing like the polished executive who'd been so proud of his fresh start plan. The sight was unsettling. This unkempt man was a far cry from the polished executive who had been so confident about his fresh start. "Elena," he called out as I walked past him to unlock the door. "Please, can we just talk? I've lost everything, my job, my reputation, my future." "Elena," he called out as I passed him to unlock the door. "Please, can we just talk? I've lost everything, my job, my reputation, my future." "And whose fault is that?" I asked, finally turning to face him. "You didn't just try to leave me, Derek. You tried to destroy me. You honestly thought I would just sit there and watch while you drained our accounts and ran off to Thailand with your girlfriend?" "Whose fault is that?" I asked, finally turning to face him. "You didn't just try to leave me, Derek. You tried to ruin me. Did you really think I would just sit by and watch while you emptied our accounts and ran off to Thailand with your girlfriend? I never meant he started, but I cut him off." "I didn't mean to," he began, but I interrupted him. "Yes, you did. You meant every bit of it. The only thing you didn't mean to do was fail." "Yes, you did. You meant every single bit of it. The only thing you didn't intend to do was fail." I pulled out my phone and showed him his Facebook post still up there for everyone to see. I took out my phone and showed him his Facebook post, which was still visible to everyone. You were so proud of yourself, weren't you? So sure that your silly wife would never see it coming? You were so proud of yourself, weren't you? So certain that your foolish wife wouldn't see it coming? He slumped further, running his hands through his unkempt hair. He slumped even more, running his hands through his messy hair. The company is pressing charges. They're saying I could face jail time. And Jessica, she won't even answer my calls anymore. The company is filing charges. They're saying I could go to jail. And Jessica, she won't even take my calls anymore. Imagine that, I said dryly. A woman who'd help a married man steal from his wife and company turned out to be untrustworthy. I'm shocked. Imagine that, I said sarcastically. A woman who would assist a married man in stealing from his wife and company turned out to be untrustworthy. I'm surprised. I've got nothing. Nothing left, he whispered. They've frozen my accounts, my credit cards are maxed out, and no one will hire me. I can't even afford a decent lawyer anymore. I have nothing left, he whispered. My accounts are frozen, my credit cards are maxed out, and no one will hire me. I can't even afford a good lawyer anymore. I thought about all the times he'd belittled my career, called my work insignificant, treated me like I was beneath him. Now here he was, undone by the very skills he'd mocked. I remembered all the times he had diminished my career, called my work unimportant, and treated me as if I were beneath him. Now, he was defeated by the very skills he had mocked. You know what your biggest mistake was? I asked, my hand on the doorknob. It wasn't the affair or the stealing or even that ridiculous Facebook post. It was spending 23 years underestimating me. You were so convinced that I was just some naive programmer who couldn't possibly understand your brilliant schemes. Do you know what your biggest mistake was? I asked, my hand on the doorknob. It wasn't the affair, the stealing, or even that absurd Facebook posts. It was spending 23 years underestimating me. You were so sure that I was just a naive programmer who couldn't possibly comprehend your clever schemes. Elena, please. He tried one last time. We can start over. I'll make it up to you, Elena. Please. He tried one last time. We can begin again. I'll make things right. I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt nothing but pity. I looked at him, truly looked at him, and felt only pity. No, Derek, we can't. But you were right about one thing. I gestured to his Facebook post on my phone. Someone is getting a fresh start. It's just not you. No, Derek, we can't. But you were right about one thing. I pointed to his Facebook post on my phone. Someone is getting a fresh start. It's just not you. I left him there on the steps and walked into the house, heading straight for my home office. I left him on the steps and entered the house, going directly to my home office. Through the window, I could see him slowly walking away, shoulders slumped, finally understanding just how completely his plan had backfired. Looking through the window, I saw him slowly walk away, shoulders slumped, finally realizing how spectacularly his plan had failed. Life settled into a new rhythm after Derek's departure. After Derek left, my life found a new routine. I moved back into our house, now legally mine as part of the divorce settlement, and focused on healing. I moved back into our house, which was now legally mine thanks to the divorce settlement, and concentrated on Healing.Kate stayed with me that first week, helping me rearrange furniture and repaint walls. Erasing the traces of my old life with Derek.K stayed with me for the first week, helping me move furniture and repaint walls to erase the memories of my life with Derek. The divorce proceedings moved quickly, especially after Derek's criminal charges came to light. The divorce was finalized quickly, especially after Derek's criminal charges were revealed. His new lawyer, clearly less qualified than his previous one, advised him to agree to my terms to gain some goodwill with the prosecution. His new lawyer, who was clearly not as skilled as the previous one, suggested he agree to my terms to get some favor with the prosecution. I got the house. My retirement accounts remained untouched. And most importantly, I got my freedom. I got the house, my retirement funds were safe, and most importantly, I got my freedom.words spread quickly through our social circle. Friends who had commented on Derek's Facebook post now reached out to me privately, offering support and sharing their own stories of betrayal, and recovery.news spread quickly among our social circle. Friends who had commented on Derek's post now contacted me privately, offering support and sharing their own stories of betrayal and healing. Sarah, my colleague from work, convinced me to join her women's support group. My colleague Sarah persuaded me to join her women's support group. At first, I felt out of place. I was the only one there who had managed to turn the tables on her ex. Initially, I felt like I didn't belong, as I was the only one who had successfully outmaneuvered her ex. But soon, I found myself sharing advice about financial security and digital awareness. But soon, I was sharing my knowledge about financial security and digital awareness. You should teach a class, Sarah suggested one evening after group. There are so many women out there who don't know how to protect themselves financially. You should teach a class. Sarah suggested after one of our sessions, so many women don't know how to protect themselves financially. The idea took root in my mind, and I started putting together a workshop on digital financial security for women going through a divorce. The idea appealed to me, and I began creating a workshop on digital financial security for women going through a divorce. My first workshop was small, just 8 women gathered in a community center conference room. My first workshop was small, with only 8 women in a community center conference room. But as I shared my story and the steps I'd taken to protect myself, I saw something change in their eyes. But as I told my story and explained the steps I had taken to protect myself, I saw a change in their expressions. These women had felt powerless, just as I had in the beginning. These women had felt powerless, just as I had when this all began. By the end of the session, they were taking notes, furiously asking questions about bank accounts and password security. By the end of the session, they were eagerly taking notes and asking questions about bank accounts and password security. The workshops grew. Word spread through divorce attorney offices and women's support networks. The workshops became more popular, and word spread through divorce attorney offices and women's support groups. Diana even started referring her clients to me. Diana even began sending her clients my way. You're teaching them things their lawyers don't even know, she told me. You're giving them their power back. You're teaching them things their lawyers don't even know, she told me. You're helping them reclaim their power. I heard through the grapevine that Derek had taken a plea deal on the embezzlement charges. He would serve 18 months in a minimum security prison, followed by probation. Through the grapevine, I heard that Derek had accepted a plea deal for the embezzlement charges. He would serve 18 months in a minimum security prison and then be on probation. Jessica, it turned out, had moved on to her next target, another married executive with access to company funds. It turned out that Jessica had moved on to her next target, another married executive with access to company funds. Sometimes I wondered if he ever realized how completely his plan had backfired. I sometimes wondered if he ever understood how badly his plan had failed. One morning, about 6 months after Derek's Facebook posts, I was checking my email and found a message from a woman in Seattle. One morning, about 6 months after Derek's Facebook post, I was checking my email and found a message from a woman in Seattle. She had attended one of my virtual workshops and used my advice to uncover her husband's hidden cryptocurrency accounts before he could drain their savings. She had participated in one of my online workshops and used my advice to find her husband's secret cryptocurrency accounts before he could empty their savings. "You saved my future," she wrote. "I was ready to give up and accept whatever he offered, but you helped me find my strength." "You saved my future," she wrote. "I was ready to give up and accept whatever he offered, but you gave me the strength I needed." I sat there reading her words over and over, feeling tears well up in my eyes. I sat there reading her words again and again, feeling tears come to my eyes. All those years of Derek dismissing my skills, treating me like I was somehow less than him, they had led me here to this moment where I could help other women protect themselves. All those years, Derek had dismissed my skills and made me feel inferior, had led me to this moment where I could help other women protect themselves. Was a certain poetry to it that even my tech-oriented mind could appreciate. There was a beautiful irony in it that even my technical mind could appreciate. As my workshops gained momentum, I found myself facing a decision I never expected. As my workshops became more popular, I was faced with an unexpected choice. My tech company offered me a sabbatical to focus on developing a comprehensive financial security program for women. My tech company offered me a sabbatical to concentrate on creating a thorough financial security program for women. The irony wasn't lost on me. The career Derek had dismissed as playing with computers was now enabling me to help others avoid the fate he had planned for me. The irony wasn't lost on me. The career Derek had called playing with computers was now allowing me to help other women avoid the fate he had planned for me. K helped me set up a proper website for the workshops. K assisted me in setting up a professional website for the workshops. "You need to document everything," she insisted. "Your story could help thousands of women. You must document everything," she insisted. "Your story could help thousands of women." She was right. Within months, I was receiving invitations to speak at women's conferences and legal seminars across the country. She was right. Within months, I was invited to speak at women's conferences and legal seminars nationwide. During one of these seminars, I ran into Jessica's husband, the one in Singapore she'd been married to while pursuing Derek. at one of these seminars. I met Jessica's husband from Singapore, the man she had been married to while pursuing Derek. He had flown in specifically to thank me. My evidence had helped him uncover not just the affair with Derek, but a pattern of similar schemes with other executives. He had flown in just to thank me. My evidence had helped him expose not only her affair with Derek, but also her pattern of similar scams with other executives. "You saved me from losing everything," he said, shaking my hand. She had it all planned out, just like with Derek. "You saved me from losing everything," he said, shaking my hand. She had it all planned, just like with Derek. The monthly support group meetings became a cornerstone of my healing process. The monthly support group meetings became a crucial part of my healing journey. I watched women arrive broken and scared, then gradually transform into confident survivors. I watched women arrive feeling broken and afraid, and then slowly turn into confident survivors. Many of them had stories similar to mine, husbands who had underestimated them, thinking they were too naive or too weak to fight back. Many of their stories were similar to mine, husbands who had underestimated them, believing they were too innocent or too weak to fight back. One evening, as I was leaving a workshop, I received a notification on my phone. Derek had finally deleted his Facebook post about Thailand. One evening, as I was leaving a workshop, I got a notification on my phone. Derek had finally removed his Facebook post about Thailand. His profile had been quiet since he began his prison sentence, but that post had remained up all this time, a digital monument to his arrogance. His profile had been silent since he started his prison sentence, but that post had stayed up the whole time, a digital reminder of his arrogance. Its deletion felt like the closing of a chapter. Its removal felt like the end of a chapter. I celebrated by treating myself to dinner at the same restaurant where Derek and I had our last anniversary meal. But this time, instead of sitting across from a man who was secretly plotting to betray me, I sat alone with my laptop, finalizing the manuscript for my book, Digital Breadcrumbs? A Woman's Guide to Financials. I celebrated by having dinner at the same restaurant where Derek and I had our last anniversary meal. But this time, instead of sitting across from a man who was secretly planning to betray me, I sat alone with my laptop, finishing the manuscript for my book, Digital Breadcrumbs, A Woman's Guide to Financial Self. Diana wrote the foreword for the book. Diana wrote the introduction for the book. Elena's story isn't just about revenge. She wrote, "It's about reclaiming your power and using it to lift others up." Elena's story is not just about revenge. She wrote, "It's about taking back your power and using it to help other people." She was right. Every workshop, every speaking engagement, every woman I helped, it all healed something in me that Derek had tried to break. She was right. Every workshop, every speaking engagement, every woman I helped, it all mended a part of me that Derek had tried to shatter. The advanced copy of my book arrived on the same day as my final divorce decree. The early copy of my book arrived on the same day as my final divorce papers. I placed them side by side on my desk, one document marking the end of my old life, the other marking the beginning of something new and unexpected. I placed them next to each other on my desk. One document signified the end of my old life, while the other marked the start of a new and unexpected one. My phone buzzed with a text from Kate, "Dinner to celebrate." My phone buzzed with a text from Kate, dinner to celebrate? I looked around my home office, now converted into the headquarters for my financial security workshops. I looked around my home office, which was now the main office for my financial security workshops. The wall was covered with thank you notes from women who had used my advice to protect themselves. Each one represented a story of empowerment of a woman refusing to be a victim. The wall was covered with thank you notes from women who had used my advice to protect themselves. Each note represented a story of empowerment of a woman who refused to be a victim. A year after Derek's Facebook announcement, I received an unexpected email from his sister, Marie. A year after Derek's Facebook post, I got an unexpected email from his sister, Marie. She had attended one of my workshops in Boston, not realizing who I was until I shared my story. She had gone to one of my workshops in Boston and hadn't realized who I was until I told my story. I always knew Derek was selfish, she wrote, but I never imagined he would do something so calculated. I'm proud of you for fighting back. I always knew Derek was selfish, she wrote, but I never thought he would do something so deliberate. I'm proud of you for fighting back. Her words hit me differently than all the other messages of support I'd received. This was Derek's own sister, acknowledging not just his betrayal, but my strength in overcoming it. Her words affected me differently than all the other supportive messages I had received. This was Derek's own sister, acknowledging not only his betrayal, but also my strength in overcoming it. I realized then how far I'd come from that morning when I first saw his Facebook post, then realized how much I had changed since that morning when I first saw his Facebook post. The woman I was then would have crumbled, might have even begged him to stay. She would have believed his lies about her being naive and helpless. The woman I was back then would have fallen apart, might have even begged him to stay. She would have believed his lies about being naive and helpless. But that woman was gone, transformed by the very crisis that was meant to destroy her. But that woman was gone, changed by the very crisis that was meant to ruin her. In her place stood someone stronger, a woman who had turned her pain into purpose. In her place was someone stronger, a woman who had turned her pain into a mission. The workshops and speaking engagements weren't just about helping other women anymore. They had become my mission. The workshops and speaking engagements were no longer just about helping other women. They had become my purpose. Every time I helped another woman protect herself, I felt more of my old wounds healing. Every time I helped another woman protect herself, I felt more of my old wounds healed. Derek had wanted to start fresh in Thailand, thinking he could simply discard 23 years of marriage with a Facebook post. Derek had wanted to start fresh in Thailand, believing he could simply throw away 23 years of marriage with a Facebook post. Instead, he gave me the push I needed to discover my true strength. Instead, he gave me the motivation I needed to find my real strength. Sometimes the worst betrayals lead us to our best selves. Sometimes the worst betrayals can lead us to become our best selves. Last week, I was organizing my home office when I found an old photo of Derek and me from our wedding day. Last week, while organizing my home office, I came across an old wedding photo of Derek and me. I barely recognized the naive woman in the white dress, smiling up at a man she thought would protect her. I barely recognized the innocent woman in the white dress, smiling at a man she believed would protect her. I tucked the photo away in a box marked past and turned back to my computer, where another thank you email awaited. I put the photo in a box labeled past and returned to my computer, where another thank you email was waiting. This one was from a grandmother in Texas who had used my digital security tips to help her daughter escape an abusive marriage. This one was from a grandmother in Texas who had used my digital security advice to help her daughter get out of an abusive marriage. You taught us that being older doesn't mean being powerless, she wrote. Knowledge truly is protection. You taught us that age doesn't mean you're powerless, she wrote. Knowledge is true protection. These messages still bring tears to my eyes, but not from pain anymore. They remind me that sometimes our worst moments can lead to our greatest purposes. These messages still make me cry, but not from sadness anymore. They remind me that our worst experiences can sometimes lead to our greatest purposes. Derek thought he was writing the end of my story with that Facebook post, but he was actually writing its beginning. Derek believed he was ending my story with that Facebook post, but he was actually starting its beginning. My new book comes out next month. And Diana tells me it's already generating buzz in legal circles. My new book will be released next month. And Diana tells me it's already creating a stir in legal circles. I'm booked solid with speaking engagements through the end of the year, teaching women how to protect themselves in an increasingly digital world. My schedule is completely full with speaking engagements for the rest of the year, where I teach women how to protect themselves in a world that is becoming more and more digital. The very skills Derek belittled have become my strength and my legacy. The very skills Derek had mocked have now become my strength and my legacy. Sometimes I wonder if Derek ever thinks about how spectacularly his plan backfired. But mostly, I'm too busy living my new life to dwell on the past. I sometimes wonder if Derek ever thinks about how badly his plan failed. But for the most part, I'm too busy with my new life to think about the past. After all, someone did get their fresh start. It just wasn't him. After all, someone did get their fresh start. It just wasn't him.